Hey, this is Shantha here. Let's understand a little more on Chapter 8, which is on Theoretical Framework of Bharatanatyam from Ram. Hi everyone, this is Shantha here. So I was going through this Chapter 8 on Theoretical Framework of Bharatanatyam, and for the benefit of readers, since I can't remember the whole sentence, I just made a note of this very interesting a statement here where Charles Kettering once said, high achievement takes place in the framework of high expectation. And this is so true, especially in the context of performing arts like Bharatanatyam, right? It's not just about the dance, but it's also about the theory behind it. And we saw some of the elements like space, time, force, body, and form. So let's invite Ram to understand a little more about it. Please welcome Ram.
Hey Shantha, thank
Hey.
you so much.
Hi.
Okay, now you started making notes, so I've got to make notes because it's too much for me to remember.
Yeah, there's so much of interesting, and I was scared that I forget some of the important points, right? So I was seeing this elements like space, time, force, body, and form. So can you break down these elements for the benefit of the readers, please?
Okay, so I think there is a book by A.G. Dilbert where she talks about the brain compatible dance education, and that's where the whole particular part of elements of how these particular space-time components and how the body movements fit into the framework for it. So if you start with space, right, that's where the movement is performed.
Okay.
Now the whole particular dance part is function of the movements that are required by the dancer to express their emotions, and the way they emote is basically the face, but the way they express can also include the hands and the legs. So that's one particular part. And then there is a concept of force, that is just to say how vigorously it is done. That could be one particular part of it.
Okay.
And then the body relates to the way the whole particular movements of dance based on force, and that's the whole combination of how this thing works.
Okay.
And yeah, if you look at form, right, the way the form is identified, and that's how the viewer perceives it. So that's how the dynamics of it basically talks about it.
And it sounds like all these elements are very crucial, right, for the theoretical framework of Bharatanatyam. Can you just explain how do they apply?
So if you go back to Natya Shastra, which is written by Bharatanatyam, he has attributed, there is a theoretical guide. So he's basically ring fenced the whole part of the dance, and he basically talks about drama, there is aesthetics, there is music, there is gestures, and all of these are comprehensive. In the way he has written, there are principles around this, there are techniques that goes on to make it, and there's a philosophical underpinning of how this whole thing forms into Bharatanatyam.
And this is what Natya Shastra talks about it also, right?
There is a very fundamental thing that he's looking for the dancers to actually master these, right? So if you look at it, there is a fundamental concept in the Bharatanatyam which is called the Adavus, and these are the basic the units of steps that is used by the dance. And you can look at, there is some classification of Adavus which are 8 different types, and in each of them there is a particular beat that they need to go. There is a 1, 2, 3, or there is a 2, 4, 6, 8, and the way it jumps is something that the Natya Shastra prescribes for the dancer to take the steps when they do the Adavus. And then of course there is also the Hastas, which basically means the hands, the movements of these, and then the dancer has to emote, right? So those particular things also comes about it. And if you look at it, the Abhinaya component is the art of expressive ways of the storytelling.
Yeah.
And that's something which is very important for the dancer, because an audience is there to perceive what you're conveying through your emotions.
Yeah, and I think there are a little detailed chapters on all this Adavus, Hastas, right? I think we need to talk more about when we come there.
Yes.
And what about the pure dance aspect?
Okay, so if you look at the pure dance aspect, the way it basically comes about is there are 3 concepts which are explained, and there is the Nritta, Nritta, and Natya. So Natya possibly has a bit more underpinnings. We can cover that a bit after as we go into it. So Nritta, for example, it is basically the rhythmic footwork that the dancers use. And then there are patterns of it, like we spoke about, the 1, 2, 3,
Yeah.
or it's a 2, 4, 8.
Yeah.
That's the way it comes out. And then if you then go to the second word, which is Nritya, the Nritya basically takes care of the Nritta and it comes up with the Abhinaya, which is the emoting part of it.
Okay.
So that would follow for the dancers, because they will need to combine the dance steps, the force of it that we spoke, for them to convey the stories that are a part of it.
And this Natya is the enhancement of the stories, right?
It's the enactment of the stories.
Yeah.
That is right. So it's complete storytelling, right?
Yeah.
And if you look at the way Natya Shastra has been, they have been thought through and basically written by, there is the narratives, there is the gestures, and then there is a costume, the makeup, how do you basically enhance the motion of the eyes, there is enhanced ways in which you do that. Apart from that, there is the music, there's lyrics, the stagecraft, the props which comes into it, and we should not forget choreography. Those are the fundamentals.
And we keep hearing about Rasa and Bhava also, right, in the dance. And so, what are these concepts?
Rasa is a very interesting way. So Rasa needs two people to form a part of it. The person who's basically doing the dance, the dancer, emotes, and that emotion is something that the audience can relate to. So the person who is looking for what they are being conveyed or what they're being told, that is where the rasa comes up with, and it's an emotional experience of how they go about understanding how do you evoke an emotion that you want the audience to relate to. So if you're doing something which is relating to valor, so you want to position the dancer to be able to promote that emotion or emote in that fashion, and the audience will be able to pick it up. So that would be the part of it. That's where the Bhava component comes in, and then there is a portrayal of emotions, and all of these is a combinations of storytelling, how the audience will relate to the dancer. That's the part of it.
Okay, that's interesting to know. And how do these concepts, theoretical concepts, help to guide the dancers for their training and for their growth?
So again, if I'm going back to Natya Shastra, and I actually relied on a lot of the translations which is done in Manmohan Ghosh book. That's a primary research part. There is the principles, the aesthetics, the techniques. So it basically is guiding the dancer through the training. There's practice that goes into expressing those emotions. And think about it, cultural heritage. You're trying to combine so much of it. It takes a lot of time for the dancer to understand that. So the mastering of the Adavus, which we spoke about, the principal units of dance steps. And then you need to understand how those dance movements combine with the Hastas, which is basically the single hand movements or the double hand movements. And there is the Abhinaya. So the Abhinaya is the enactment that the dancer is using the Adavus and Hastas to express themselves.
Wow.
So that is it. So then you're talking about the Nritta, the Nritta, and the Natya. Coming together, which is invoking the rasa for the audience, and the bhava, what does it create as a response to the way the dancer is emoting the scene.
Okay, that's interesting. And we see some traditions in Bharatanatyam like Margi and Desi, right? So what are these traditions about?
So there are multiple schools from where this whole particular traditions have evolved. So if you look at the Margi tradition, it is primarily the classical part. There is a traditional approach to doing things, and these are basically simply adhering to the text which is there in the Natya Shastra. But also remember the technical precision that we are talking about, the traditional repertoire, and the Abhinaya and the spiritual aspect. So it enhances the way it can be emoted. The Desi tradition, on the other part, it is basically going to include the flavors of the region. So if you go to some parts of it's like the food habits. You go more closer to the seashore, then you'll find fish and coconut as a primary part. As you go into the hinterland, the food quality becomes so different. And again, in a country like India, food possibly changes every 15 months. So it's incorporating the folk moment. So there were folk dances which was there for different tribes which resided in multiple parts of it. And then there is an influence of the local music. Then the way they dress. So their costumes are impacted. The regional themes which are different. So in some parts of South India, you will find that the child is celebrated more. In most of the country, it is the Shakti, which is the Devi. So you enhance the capability of the woman, but in different ways you promote characteristics and traits. So those are basically the local traits. That would be the Desi tradition that comes in.
So both these traditions are important on their own way, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So the point is, you can be a purist. So the moment you're a purist, you're going to go into the Margi tradition. Then you're saying, okay, you're basically true to the way. But think about it, Bharatanatyam is being taught in Assam. There is going to be the Sadar, which is what the style is. Then you go slightly more towards Kerala. There is an impact of the Mohiniyattam which comes in. Or you go still further, there is Kathakali. So these are the regional flavors of it which comes together for promoting these kind of combinations. Right? Basically, it's a combination of these two.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. I think we're going to talk about all of these different types of dances in the upcoming chapters. I've gone through those chapters. So the integration of this theory and the practice along with Margi and Desi traditions truly enriches Bharatanatyam, right? Ensuring its continuity and for our future generations.
Okay, the smile is because I think you've done a lot of research and possibly read a good amount of the chapter that your questions
I
basically
have,
say.
yeah.
So I think what we are trying to get to is the theoretical framework is to bring out a very holistic experience of it. Instead of restricting the dancer to the Margi tradition, which will then become purist, which is great. Yeah, then true to the book where the Natya Shastra is talking. But then the local flavor, the regional component of it, the music, all of those elements. So the holistic view is what is basically going to be enhancing the beauty of Bharatanatyam itself.
Yeah. So readers, if you want to know more and delve into the chapter 8, please do refer to chapter 8 in the book. And that's what I would recommend.
Wow. I'm very happy that you have done so much of reading. At least one person has accepted what I've written, or at least understood and loved what I've written.
Yeah, I'm
Thank
sure
you so
there'll be
much.
a lot more readers now.
Thank you so much.